respected Deputy Chair of the Committee, Honorable Pere Oseke, my good friend and partner in this assignment, my very good friends in the committee, all the members of the committee, about 40 of us, the GMD Nigerian Petroleum Corporation, Malam Mele Kyari, the Principal Petroleum Training Institute, Afrun, the Executive Secretary, Naiti, gentlemen of the press, our very good friends and our very good collaborators in moving Nigeria forward. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you all to this meeting. As you are aware, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria confers on the National Assembly powers of oversight on the executive and judicial arms of government. These powers of oversight are further specified in the House of Representatives through the provisions of Order 18, Rule 75 of the Standing Orders of the House in our case. The purpose of calling this meeting is for us to acquaint ourselves with you, given the committees of the House have only recently been constituted. Additionally, we expect you to bring us up to speed with developments in your various agencies, challenges that you face in the course of carrying out your mandate, steps that you have taken to overcome these challenges so far, and interventions that you believe we can make to assist you achieve your goals and objectives. We are meeting with you with an open mind, with the conviction that we are partners. Accordingly, we trust that you will take us into confidence and tell us the exact situation of activities in your various agencies. In this wise, we shall be working with you to make our country better rather than working at cross purposes. At this juncture, I will yield to standing up as a respect for our great country, Nigeria, as a respect to not only myself, please, as a respect to all the members of this committee that have given me the support and assurance of amiable, loyal, friendly membership in order for me to succeed as the chair of this committee. I am assuring Nigerians that this committee will leave no stone unturned to make sure that Nigeria is the Nigeria we have been yearning for over the decades, and in conformity with the ideas, objectives of our leader, President Muhammadu Buhari, who is prepared patriotically to move Nigeria to the next level. I take your excuse. I prefer speaking from my mind. I don't always want to read from what somebody has prepared, even though this was drafted by me and proofread by the clerk. But meanwhile, anything that comes from my mind is what I believe in, like I did at our inaugural meeting. Most of the members shared my views and felt inspired by what we discussed here. This committee is made up of about 40 gentlemen and women, and it is the committee that has the highest number of credible, experienced, dedicated, and committed members of this House. As I've told you in our meeting last week, we have over 17 committee chairmen, members heading other committees that are in this committee. That is to show you the seriousness the House assigned to the Committee on Petroleum Upstream. As we are equally aware, this is the cash cow of the country. It is where the country premised its budget on the earnings from the sales and destruction of the oil sector. For this, I would like to share with you my thoughts and my feelings. When the budget of 10.3 trillion naira was presented to us, converted into dollar, it is less than $9 billion. And I look at other smaller countries like Ghana, Angola, Algeria, with fewer and lower populations. Their budget is much higher than us. Egypt is about 90 million people. They do not have oil, but their budget is well over $56 billion. I wonder what we can achieve with 10.3 trillion naira. And we know there is paucity of funds. This is just an estimate. These funds are not available. Who is supposed to provide that funds? Basically and mostly it is you, the NNPC. You have great challenge. You have huge task to get this money for us. Over the years we have been having budget deficits. Over the years we have been borrowing. Why should we be borrowing? With the quantum of oil and gas reserves we have in this country, what is our problem? To extract and exploit it? To market and remit what are accrued from there? I'm talking to you with all sense of purposeness and with seriousness. As members of parliament, I've been here for the last decade and 2 years. This is my 13th year in this parliament. We have never had a budget which reached the target which was provided in the provision. Henceforth, we want to help you, we want to help the nation, we want to work together to make sure we do things differently from our predecessors. Like the soldiers say, soldier come, soldier go, but barracks remain. Parliament come, parliament go, GMD come, GMD go, EDs come, ED go, MDs come, MD go, but Nigeria remains. Let us do that which would be remembered in next few years, in next few decades, even in centuries, that at the time of GMD Mele Carry, Nigeria had surplus of budgets. Nigeria has surplus of funds. And we can do it. It is doable. It is our attitude. We just must change our attitude. So the purpose of this meeting is to know what are our challenges. We are ready. If you have anything militating against you from the legislative side, we will overcome it to you in very few time to come. I want to give you that assurance. We have the mandate of Nigerian people. We have the mandate of our leader, Mr. Speaker, that Honorable Pemi Bajabia Miller. We are in great collaboration with the executive. There is no any friction between we and them. We are one and same. Having won the election with larger majority, with majority in the National Assembly by the APC, and our PDP members are very cooperative with us. There's going to be no rancor this time around, because we realize the task of building Nigeria is a joint task, like we have a slogan in the house. The task of nation building is a joint task. So I invite all of you to join hands with us. Please come and join us so that we move Nigeria to the next level. With this, I would like to thank my honorable colleagues for giving me the opportunity and for coming en masse to attend this meeting. And I also appreciate the presence, especially of the GMD, despite his tight schedule. He called me on Friday that he is in Libreville having a meeting there, and he wasn't aware of the letter we sent to him. However, he promised on reaching Nigeria he would get in touch with me. He called me on his way from the airport to his house. He said he had not received the letter yet, but he was going to the office yesterday, Sunday, and he will go through his mails. And this morning I received a call from his GMD Public Affairs that they are having engagement with the Senate for what I've told you, the PSC Act review. And he wanted me to, and when it bites, it bleeds. Thank you very much. So, introduction from our guests. 1987, the production per day was 1.34 million barrels per day. 1987, 30 years before now. In 1997, it was 2.21 million barrels per day. In 2007, it was 2.20 million barrels per day. And in 2017, it was 1.99 million barrels per day. Why I'm bringing this? I wonder where you have natural resource and where you have improved technology and you have improved managerial skills, like all of you here are hybrid managers of global repute. So I expect you, when you come, you look at when you are young officers, the production level was 1 or 2.1, and still now you are here, you have grown within the service for about 30 years, and still the production remains. So I'm putting it to you as a challenge. Now you go back and review yourselves and see how can you increase it to 4.5 million to 10 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia is about 34 million. How many barrels do they export every day? About 7 million barrels. Iran, they have about 65 million population. They have about 4.something million barrels per day. From my findings, I may be wrong, but from my findings what is there, you know better. All I'm saying is our concern is how do we grow and explore more of our oil wealth so that we can build this Nigeria, so that we can provide infrastructure, we can provide employment, and secure this country to live peacefully and happily. Thank you very much.
And indeed, the national target of 3 million barrels per day of production, daily production, and 40 billion barrels of reserve has not been attained. But what I can assure you, Mr. Chairman, is that we're very focused today. We know this is possible. We have taken steps to realize this before the end of 2023, because it is possible. A number of interventions are ongoing currently, including our very elaborate, intrusion into the frontier basins, which, as the chairman is aware, we have just announced oil discovery in the Gongola Basin, and we expect many more to happen, including the Anambra platform and in some part of the Benue Trough, and including the Chad Basin and the Vida Basin. All these are possible. We have very good prospects, and we know that the possibility of attaining the 40 billion barrels per oil reserve is very possible, Mr. Chairman. And on increasing the production, which is very paramount, even if you have the reserve, you don't produce, it's of no value. We're taking critical steps, and there are part of it that the legislator must come in. As you may be aware, Mr. Chairman, since 2007, there is no significant investment decision made by this industry in our country. And the highest that was done is the investment of about increase of about $500 million since 2007. And that means there's something responsible for this. One of them is fiscal clarity. As you are aware, Chairman, efforts to bring the petroleum legislation on the table has not materialized. And I know today that this assembly is very determined to ensure that the petroleum legislation is put in place. That will address the issue of fiscal stability, because investors must be convinced that your laws will not change, you have a stable fiscal regime, and they know the basis of their investment. And I believe that when we quickly resolve the issue of the fiscal legislation, it will be a mighty step towards getting our partners to invest in our country. Secondly, Mr. Chairman, there are issues around security across our areas of operations. And that has hindered some intervention in some of the onshore assets. This too is not left unattended, Mr. Chairman. There are ongoing engagements by our security agencies in collaboration with industry stakeholders, particularly the NNPC, to make sure that those security issues are resolved. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, it has come to very BRS minimum. What is also true today is that some stealing of petroleum crude is going on. There are efforts that are going on to stop this, and we believe that within the record time, this will be contained, so that you will see incremental value in the production numbers that we have. And indeed, as a result of these interventions, Mr. Chairman, in last week, we have attained a level of production that we didn't do in the last 2 years, which is we have hit over close to 2.3 million barrels per day. And we know that this will grow because of the interventions that we are doing and the resolution of issues that we are doing with our partners. Our partners are going back to exploration, they are going back to production, and within a record time, Mr. Chairman, you will see these numbers will change. Next year, I assure you, Mr. Chairman, when you sit back to look at these numbers, that every 10 years statistics that you have taken, that you will see a huge difference between what you know and what has happened and what will happen. When you produce, you can produce 3 million barrels and still not have value. And what will make you have value is two things. One, we don't have control over it. That's price in the market. That we have no control over it. The second is your cost of production, Mr. Chairman. We have carried out extensive engagements and processes put in place to make sure that our cost of production comes up, which are literally, it will translate into higher revenues to the federation in form of higher taxes and higher profit oil that will come from this business. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, you do need to help us. And the help we need is to sort out the legislation. Without sorting out the legislation, every intervention you will make will come to nullity, because nobody will take his money and put into upstream operation if he's not sure when he's going to get back his money, what returns he's going to get, and whether or not you are not going to change your legislation within the period of that contract. That is very critical, and I know and I'm aware that there are ongoing engagement between the executive and the National Assembly to make sure that we put behind the issue of petrol legislation behind that. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, we are very committed. As a national oil company, we'll do things very differently. We'll make sure that you are aware of what we are doing. We'll be very transparent and accountable to this National Assembly and to the rest of the Federation, such that ultimately the decisions we make on behalf of all of us will become of value to all of us, and that we can all sit back tomorrow and say that all of us have worked for this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like also to crave your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, to join Senator Albert. As you are aware, I had to take his leave to come here, and everything I have said, we run a team. Roland Ovare, the CEO upstream, is on top of everything I know. We don't hide anything from each other, so everything I'm saying, I'm sure that if you ask him tomorrow, he's going to repeat the same thing. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm very grateful for this privilege of speaking to this very honorable committee, and I look forward to working together with this committee so that we can make progress in our country. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Complaining over the years that the joint venture obligations by the NNPC, especially the cash call payments, because to the best of our knowledge, the IOCs are the drivers of the industry. And if NNPC is not meeting up the cash call obligations, as of today we hear there are backlogs of cash call payments that are being owed to the IOCs. Maybe in previous administrations, we wouldn't know. So what are the challenges that is making NNPC not meeting up this cash call obligation? That's my question.
Before this administration came on board, we have entered a settlement agreement which has allowed us, particularly in respect of one of our partners, to completely pay out all the legacy cash call. Today we are up to date on all our current liabilities to cash call. What you hear sometimes about non-payment is actually a transaction problem of getting the dollar transaction affected in the Central Bank of Nigeria. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, we are completely up to date on our cash call obligations. We do not have that challenge anymore.
And into oil industry, but the technical capacity of NNPC, which up to now we rely so much outside. I want to ask you, how do you build your technical capacity to take charge of all those oil extraction, in terms of drilling, in terms of so many things? Even look at our refineries. Most of them are not working. Some of them, they say they rely on those that even did the contract of putting up the refinery, as if our engineers or our technical staff, they don't have capacity to man all those refineries and even the drilling facilities. I think that's my question, Chair.
Global oil and gas industry, there's nowhere you will go that you will not find a skilled Nigerian working in the oil and gas industry. And indeed, we are probably the largest contributor to skilled manpower in the oil and gas of all the black nations in the world. And today in the industry, over 90% of the personnel, the technical personnel, are sourced locally. They are run by Nigerians. There's really no paucity of such capacity. What is true is that engagement of this will have not been optimized. And this is what we need to work with the Nigerian Content Development Board to make sure that certain skills that come up from time to time basis or need basis are provided for, so that this industry continues to grow. And coming back to the refinery, let me address completely the refinery, the honourable member. The refinery didn't fail because there were no skilled people. They failed because we were unable to take care of the refineries. And we don't want to give excuses why we didn't take care of it. You can blame anyone. But what we have decided to do is to make them work. There's no scarcity of skilled people. The will is there today. And that our plan, subsequently, at the right time, we'll make it available to you. Our plan is to get them to work, and I assure you that the plans we have in place will deliver this refinery. There is no issue around absence of skill. We have the best refiners in the world. Anywhere you go in the world, they will attest to you that you have the best refiners that are African in this country. It's getting them to work. That is the issue, and we are focused on this. We'll deliver on this. Thank you very much, Chairman. I hope I have satisfied you. Yes, sir. You heard the engagement we had with the GMD. Members would want to ask more questions about the activities of your sector. So any member that wish to ask any question, you wanted to raise a question, then you can fire to him.
A huge deficit in terms of budgetary funding for this country. For me, it's a serious concern that we face year in, year out. And then it's beyond us coming here to, make general statements that between now and 2023, we are going to do something to address the deficit. It's beyond that. I want us to be to be very specific about a kind of framework, kind of strategy that we can put in place, so that if we continue to borrow next year, borrow upper year, we now believe that by 2023, we are not going to borrow money to fund the deficit anymore. We can't have this kind of enormous resources here, and then every year we continue to borrow. So I would like you to go back, to your management, and then come up with strategy. This time around, a written one that we can follow it step by step to see how this deficit can be addressed in the next 3 years, just like your GMD committed before elect. That is my concern. I would like us to study it so that in case we have input, we can also say, okay, here is okay, but don't you think we can move away from this area to this side so that we can, meet somewhere? I want us to, in the next 2-3 years, we meet this budget deficit. It's too much as a country. That's my concern.
So I don't necessarily toe the party line, the government line. I try to speak the truth as it is. We really do have a problem, sir, like you said. The deficit is on the large side, and strategies and mechanisms to bridge that deficit and eventually lead us to a budget surplus is what we should all be concerned about. Now, from the narrow prism of exploration and production in Nigeria today, sir, I can tell you why, or I can adduce some reasons as to why we're not making as much progress as we should make. And let me just use some facts and statistics, because they say numbers don't lie. In 1999, sir, we had a baseline national reserve profile of about 22 billion barrels. 1999, when the advent of democracy came. 10 years on, so 2009, we had gotten to 37 billion barrels of reserves. Between 2009 and today, the next 10-year frame, no movement. We are now at 37.5. So just 500 million barrels more, represented by the discovery of Owowo. So that's one basket. Put it there, sir. Second basket I'll throw at you, sir, is that in the past 4 years, 2015 to now, and I joined NNPC from the US in 2015, so since I've been in NNPC, there's been $72 billion of foreign investment, final investment decisions taken, FIDs taken, for oil and gas projects in Africa. 72 billion in the past 4 years across Africa. Only 2% of that came to Nigeria. All right? I mention this because I will tie it to your argument about the budget deficit and how we bring more dollars to the table for our country. The world has changed between 1993, when we started exploring in deep water, and today. In 1993, you had oil in Nigeria, Libya, Gabon. Where else in Africa? Maybe 4 countries in Africa.
Angola.
And Angola. Angola was frontier then.
Yeah.
Today, sir, there's oil in Somalia, Mozambique, Ghana, Senegal, Mauritania, Chad. Everywhere has oil. So there's competition for investment dollars. Every dollar today is elastic to the extent of the opportunity cost that it represents. So ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, in deciding to invest in any environment, they compare the different climates and see where they'll make the best return. The long and short of it is, for us to increase production here, when you increase production, you increase royalties, you increase taxes, that's more money for the government. We have to be competitive. And that is where legislative intervention is going to be required in terms of providing fiscal clarity around an environment that makes sense for the IOCs to invest here. Whether we like them or not, sir, my colleagues here will attest, global capital, global technology around oil and gas lies with the IOCs. Our Nigerian brothers who we have divested assets to don't have the capacity in terms of technology, in terms of finance, to work those assets. All right? You're from Akwa Ibom, sir. ExxonMobil is the primary operator where you are. The USAN FPSO is an $8 billion floating production storage platform. There's no Nigerian entity that can write a check of $8 billion for that kind of asset. So we need to make our environment a welcome home for global capital. Once that is done, sir, once you have projects, a few things happen. I'm very happy you have Chief Erotomi on your committee. He's a leading indigenous contractor. Tomba Resources is the name of his company. Now that he's on this side, I'm sure he doesn't run that company anymore, so that code of conduct don't come and arrest him. All right? But he knows that there's a linkage between IOC investment and the amount of work that they get as local contractors. So when he's busy, he employs more people. When he employs more people, those people spend more money. VAT, taxes, the total envelope of government take increases when there's activity. So it is up to us, sir, to create the environment that enables activity, and then in no short order, this deficit will be eliminated. I'll give you the example of Qatar. Qatar has taken the decision that, you know what, 20 years from now, fossil fuels will be irrelevant, the way the world is going. So what have they done? They've basically gone into bilateral conversations with IOCs. So they say, you, Mr. X oil company, what do you need from me to invest in Qatar? Mr. Y company, what do you need? Then based on that bilateral conversation, they give you all the incentives you need to come and invest. And here's their thinking. Come, invest, take your share. Even if, in terms of mindset, you're cheating us, no problem. Our own share, we will take it, invest in infrastructure, diversify our economy, so that 20 years from now, when oil becomes irrelevant, if it does become irrelevant, they have no wahala. So there's a lot we need to do, sir, in terms of intelligent strategy, all right, in terms of attracting capital to this environment so that our $9 billion budget, which the Honorable Chairman referred to, becomes child's play, and we're talking about budgets in multiples of tens of billions of dollars, which is what we need to power a country of 200 million people. Thank you, sir.
Neighboring countries with our refined products. And I mean, what gives me concern and others concern is the fact that this product is subsidized, and I mean, it's not being smuggled, you know, causing a drain on our own economy. The recent closure of the border has really revealed the extent, you know, to which smuggling is being carried out. What strategy has NNPC put in place or is thinking of, you know, to curb, to stop this smuggling? Some have suggested, there have been some suggestions in the past, that can't NNPC explore the possibility of having stage operations offshore operations outside Nigeria, so that instead of allowing these black market operators to smuggle the something, why don't we take the products down to them? Probably have a company that deals in downstream, you know, outside Nigeria. So that's my.
So the pricing of petroleum, of white products in Nigeria versus our neighboring countries, all right? There's the incentive for those who are criminally minded to exploit that arbitrage, and that's what leads to the diversion and smuggling of petroleum products. All of us here in this room know that we don't consume 60 million liters of petrol a day in Nigeria, all right? I'm told that petroleum products from Nigeria have been traced as far inland as even Sudan. All right. So in a sense, there's the argument that a good chunk of the sub-region is dependent on us for fuel in that sense. That said, sir, NNPC has been tasked by Mr. President to fix this issue. And if you're familiar with recent events in the media, sir, you'll know that we launched an Operation White recently, and that whole exercise is a strategic one in tandem with the security agencies to now begin a process of tracking every molecule from when it gets into Nigeria to the very last point. The thinking is that if we can monitor and track, all right, and put together a database framework with the security elements involved as well, we would, in very short order, eliminate all the loopholes that encourage such behavior. So there's a plan in place that was just launched last week. It's very early days yet. Give us another week or two, and we'll give you, very, very clear information as to what comes in, where it's consumed, where the leakage points are, and steps that have been taken to address those leakage points. So there's an active work in progress going on now, sir. Depending on two factors, all right? One is your reserve profile. So the more reserves you have, the higher profile you get ascribed by OPEC, and your historical production. So the combination of those two factors determine your quota. Whatever we produce today, we have ready market for, because our crude is light, sweet, easy to refine, and the globe has appetite for our kind of crude. So I'm not too worried about distribution. But I get the sense of where you're going with your thinking, and it's the right path, man, and which is if I want to reframe the question, is how do you capture extra value from crude oil you have? And that, of course, means diversifying into refining and petrochemicals. Because at that point, a barrel of oil today is what, $60. But if you pass it through the full value-added spectrum, you're then looking at, I think the figure is about $350 a barrel is what you get if you crack the chain completely. The same thing about you grow your cocoa, you export it raw, versus if you turn it into chocolate or candy. So we do have ready markets today for our crude because of the quality of our crude, but you are correct in your instinct, Matt, that we can get more if we move midstream and downstream. Yes, ma'am.
And as your institution, can you tell us what percentage of the profits, if you make any at the moment, is dedicated to future energy production? Because it's important for us to be relevant, just as we are at the moment. If you're making any profit for R&D, research and development into future energy production, with the mindset that fossil fuel may be relevant in the next 20 years, what are you doing about it? Can you tell us figures or plans, please?
These national oil companies like us, or IOCs, the international oil companies, have switched mindset towards becoming energy companies. So you're looking at companies are not just dependent on exploration and production of fossil hydrocarbons, but you want to have the full energy mix in your portfolio. So you hear Total talking about being an energy company, Shell, ADNOC, Petronas, all of them. So NNPC, of course, is also on that same track. All right. We do have a renewable energy division headed by a group general manager. So we take it seriously. It's seriously staffed. And there are all kinds of initiatives going on right now around biomass, ethanol. We have collaborations now with, I think, 4 or 5 states, MOU signed, feed designs in place to start projects around those sort of areas. That said, sir, the intelligent thinking around the world, still believes that for a world of 7 billion people, you're still going to need the kind of energy we provide today. So renewables and alternative fuel sources will continue to grow and be relevant, but the baseline requirement for raw fossil fuels will remain. Yes, the Europeans and the Americans will move towards electric cars and all that, but remember, a bigger chunk of the world lives in Africa and Asia, and we have not migrated to that level in terms of the evolution of our utility of hydrocarbon products. Thank you.
Over years, I've read Naiti reports year in, year out. I've also listened to the outcry and the arguments that you have at FAC meeting over disparity on remittances, over disparity on production level, and the entire operations of NNPC and its subsidiaries. And I want you to help me if I come to the conclusion that your report's presentation are nothing to rely upon, and that is probably why we have a decline in the investments that is coming to that sector vis-a-vis contribution to our national GDP. I do not subscribe to the idea of my colleague putting the entire deficit in our budget on NNPC, because I believe that we can actually do better, do more, outside the oil and gas sector, if we explore our ICT world, if we explore our communication world, you look at the stamp duty. We're talking about stamp duty. Nobody has told this, nobody has mentioned to us where over 10 trillion nairas that have been generated on the stamp duty. If we have, assuming without conceding, that even you take the least figure, in a research you carried out 4 trillion naira. If you take 4 trillion naira out, Mr. Chairman, sir, I think 4 trillion naira would probably, underwrite the current shortfall that we have. So I'm not blaming, holding you responsible, but my position is that I'm worried about level of transparency in this sector. If you take NPDC in Benin City, for example, evaluate their assets. What are they doing with the assets? All marginal fields and all that, what are they doing there? And yet, they incur debts. Mr. Chairman, sir, you need to call for the position of NPDC, their books. You'll be shocked that they're rotten there. So, some of us are worried there that until this sector... Sir? Who is the NPDC? Oh, thank God I don't know, So, I used to know Mega something, Matasha hair. So, you see, okay, Atashiko. So, if you, sir, sincerely, because whether we like it or not, we that are on this side, one day we'll leave this seat. Even you on that side, one day you also exit. So, generation coming behind our children, this nation, what do you say? So, transparency in this sector is the major thing that gives me good pimples. And how do we address this?
First and foremost, of being a 52-year-old Nigerian citizen. So I'm a Nigerian first before an employee of NNPC. So I'll be the first to admit that historically there's been a credibility deficit and a transparency deficit in terms of NNPC and its reporting of its information. That's where you're coming from, all right? And we all know that. But what I would tell you, sir, is that over the past 4 years, we've made major effort to improve. NNPC is a massive behemoth, all right? And it takes a while to change the culture of an organization like as big as that. But we can't surrender and say, oh, it's going to be very difficult, so we relax. No, we've started that process. You will agree, sir, that for the past 3.5 years, every month we publish our results, no matter how dirty and bad they are. For making losses, we let the Nigerian people know. That publication, sir, drills down to every single business unit. So you see how much NPDC made that month, how much it made the month before, how well it's doing compared to its budget. All of that information we put out. Right. We've also, for the first time, sir, released our raw audited financial reports. That's already gone out. Nati used to, constantly beat up on us. They're not giving us as much grief as before because they do realize that we are making an effort to turn the tide and do things better. I'll have you know, sir, that the current GMD, Melekiari, his own imprimatur of what he wants to do over his tenure is hinged on 4 elements. First one is transparency, second is accountability, and then performance excellence. So transparency is the first one he picked on, and all I can give you, sir, is our commitment that going forward you will see a different organization. Now on NPDC, I and the MD are the first to admit that historically there have been problems in NPDC. These debts you're referring to, sir, the government has imposed them on us and said we must pay, all right? But it's for infractions that are currently the subject of criminal investigation. But that said, we've accepted. I'm sorry?
You said, based on your speech and what you're saying, you said the debt, federal government imposing on you. Are you able to prove yourself no doubt that you are not indebted?
No. We're not on trial. So here's the issue. You have sums of money that will have been due to the federation, but for the bad behavior of certain people who are subject to criminal proceedings. So you can make one argument that when that criminal proceeding is determined, and recovery is taken from those guys, you pay the government, right? But we've said, the government has said, no. That's a separate process. You pay for the time being. That's what I meant by that. So it's not, all right? NNPC, exactly.